Lesson 12.1, creating systems of linear equations. So all of Module 11 was how do you solve systems. Now it's actually developing systems. So again, they give you an example in the Explorer. We're going to skip that. We're going to go straight to this Explain 1. Often a company will charge a startup fee for services followed by a monthly or per unit cost fee. This can be written as a linear function in slope-intercept form. So it's wanting you to compare here. So it gives you a video streaming service. Atomic Stream charges $10 for membership and $1 for each movie, whereas Blitz Video charges $15 for a membership fee and 50 cents per movie. How many movies would you need to download for the services to have identical costs? So you want them to be equal. And what is that cost? So what are we looking for? We're looking for where these lines intersect, where they're equal, so you could do substitution, elimination, graphing, whatever you want to. So we're going to go, based on the information, we're going to create equations for these. So you can fill in the blanks here if you want to, but I'm just going to go straight to the equations. So Atomic Stream, $10 membership plus $1 per movie. Blitz Video, $15 membership fee plus 50 cents per movie. Now again, you may want to think of this as Y and X so that you can do graphing or whatever method you choose. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to go ahead and do one of the hand methods. What's that? Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm doing like elimination or substitution. That's one of the methods you do by hand. Now, honestly, if I'm doing this, I would probably do it on the calculator because they're in slope-intercept form. It's very easy. But I just want to review one of the methods by hand. So in this case, I'm going to try to eliminate y. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to multiply this one by -1. Or if you go back and review the video, we talked about how the book teaches it as subtraction, and I said that's really just multiplying by negative. So now that becomes -y, -15, and then -0.5m. So what happens? These cancel or eliminate. That leaves 0, -5, plus 0.5m. So I add 5 to both sides. So now I have 5 equals 0.5m. I divide by 0.5. And if I did that, I get 10 equals m. Now, what is 10? 10 is m, which are the number of movies. Now, what do I have to do? I also have to figure out the cost. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to go back and plug it into the first equation because there's no decimals. So now I have y equals 10 plus 1 times 10. So that's 10 plus 10, which is 20. So that means the cost of the movies would be $20. So if I rent 10 movies from both of these services, then they're going to cost me 20. Now, which one's cheaper in the beginning? Well, this is where we go back. This Atomic's cheaper in the beginning because their membership fee's less. But eventually, this Blitz becomes cheaper because their slope is smaller. And we talked about that going back to Module 7 when we first started kind of looking at systems. So again, it kind of walks you through it here. It has a your turn, so I'm going to do question number 3 with you, and then I'm going to give you a chance to try number 4. So this one I'm going to choose to do a different method. So in this case, one cable television provider has a $60 setup fee and charges $80 per month. So y equals 60 plus 80x. The second one has a $160 equipment fee and charges $70 per month. So 160 plus 70x. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to use the calculator. So I'm going to put these into y equals. So this one's going to be y1. This one's going to go in for y2. And then remember, we go to second, trace, and choose number 5, intersect. Now, here's an issue. We did this back in Module 4. You got to pay attention to the numbers. These are really big numbers here. So because they're big, you need to set your window up, because remember, you can't find the solution on the calculator until you can see where they actually intersect. So you may have to play around with your window here. So for this particular problem, my window, I have my x-min, my x-min at 0 because it's a word problem, can't have negatives in this particular case. I did my x-max at 20. We talked about this in Module 7 quite a bit, and my x-scale was 1. Now my y-min was 60 because that was the smallest y I had. My y-max, I played around with this. At first I tried 500. That didn't work. I had to keep going up, so I went all the way up to 1,000. It's really big. My y-scale, I did by 100s. So again, you may have to play around with this to figure out, but you got to be able to see it. Now we go to the second trace, number 5, and then remember you press enter 3 times. So my intersection occurs at the point 10, 860. Okay, now what does that mean again? So if I pay for 10 months, then it's going to cost me $860, and that's where they are both the same. Now, who was cheaper initially? Initially, this one was cheaper because of my startup fee being 60. This one was a startup of 160. But eventually, too, this one right here will be the cheapest because it's charging less per month than that one. So I want you to do number 4. Pick whatever method you want to. You may want to pause the video here so you have a chance to try to work it, and then you can check it. Okay, so here are my 2 equations based on the information I underlined in the problem. This one right here is green lawn. This one is yard care. I did it on the calculator again, found the intersection was at 136. What that means is after 3 months, both of them will charge me $136. So again, who is cheaper at the beginning? At the beginning is Y2, which was yard guard, because they cost me less startup. But eventually, green lawn would be cheaper overall if I use them more than 3 months because they're charging me less per month. So again, one of the things they do here is they show you how to compare these when you're using a table. So you can look at a table. Again, you got to have your equations. They got to be in slope-intercept form. So it takes you through an example here. Another fill-in-the-blank one. Okay, so here's one now where we've got to come up with the equation. So we have 2 different equations that we got to come up with because, again, this whole idea is that it's system. So first thing we need to do is find slope. How do we get slope? Remember what we said, just always count here. What's happening? They're going up by 35. In this one, what's happening? It's going up by 40. Okay, so the red one here, Y1, is now something to be careful with. This is not my y-intercept. That is my first term. And if you go back to where we reviewed before, remember your y-intercept is also called your 0 term, so I've got to go backwards. So what I do here, I go backwards by subtracting 35, which would take me to 40. That is the y-intercept for that one. So y1 is 35x plus 40. My blue one over here, I'm going to call y2. My slope is 40, but again, I've got to go backwards here. So that starting point is 5. So we know who's going to be cheaper initially. That's going to be Y2 because we start at 5 instead of 40. But again, you want to put these in the calculator. So I'll give you a minute to type these in the calculator. Check your window. Make sure you can see where the 2 graphs intersect. Find the intersection. We'll check it here. So if you got them in the calculator, you should have gotten a 0.7, 285. So the first thing you have to do is come up with the equations. And then you find the intersection. Now again, what does that mean? So we go back and look what these representations are. P stone X in cubic yards. In other words, if I get 7 cubic yards, or also written as that, then it's going to cost me $285 at both companies. Now again, after that point, this one right here, Yard Depot, is going to be cheaper because they charge me less per cubic yard. So they give you another one to try here. We're going to skip that. So here's one with a graph. Fill in the blank. So I'm going to do this one with you as well. So it says use the graph to make a linear model of each function. Okay, so I'm going to take the dark one here, g of t. There's my y-intercept. To get my slope, I count. What did I do there? I went up 49. What did I do here? I went up 7. So changing y over changing x would be 49 over 7, which is 7. So for g of t, it would be 7t, I got to use t here, plus 15 because that was my starting point. Now for f of t, I'm going to use red. So I look at f of t, there's my starting point. What happened here? I went up 7, I went up 7, so 7 over 7, so changing y over changing x, 7 over 7 is 1. So that's 1t plus 57. Now the solution's easy because we already have it. It's right there where they cross, which is at 764. Okay, now what do these mean? So you've got to look at the axis here. Number of days. So after 7 days, what? The cabin rental costs. The two companies are going to charge me $64. So if I rent from both these cabin places, wherever, whatever they are, for 7 days, then they'll both charge me $64. Who's cheaper at the beginning? Again, G of T is cheaper. It's below this one because, why? The startup fee is less. So you're going to do on page 540 numbers 1 through 17 odd and number 18.